Hey there, welcome to Automobiles, and today we are here with the Renault Kwid AMT, one of the cheapest available automatic hatchbacks in the country. Now the Kwid is a very important model for Renault. The Kwid sells about 5,000 units a month. Now that's a lot of numbers. Having said that, today we are here with the Kwid AMT variant to test how it is and to tell you what you should look for or expect if you're considering one. First off, some specs. The Kwid with AMT transmission comes only in the RXT and Climber variants with a 3-cylinder 1-litre engine, which means you get 68 PS of power at 5500 rpm and 91 Newton meters of torque peaking at 4250 rpm. The car has a ground clearance of 180mm, which is one of the highest in its class, and a boot space of 300 litres, which is also best in class. 13-inch wheels with raised wheel arches and the overall rugged look gives this hatch a very SUV-like look. Design-wise, Renault has done a good job in giving the Kwid a lot of character. Now let's get inside and see how the cabin is to be in. Now the interiors of the Kwid AMT are pretty basic, and that's expected of a car of this price range. Having said that, the interiors are full black. You have a digital instrument cluster which doesn't have any analog dials. Then you have air conditioning vents which are circular on the sides and then rectangular in the center. You have air conditioning controls which are pretty basic and do their job well. Then you have buttons for the hazard lights. Then you have buttons for the power windows. Mind you, there are no power window buttons on either side of the door. And then you have a button to lock all doors of the car, and that's the central locking button. And then you have the AMT dial, something about which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now there's a lot of space for you to keep your knickknacks in. There are cubby holes right here and here as well. You have a 12-volt DC parts charging socket. Then you have space to keep your knickknacks right here. There's a glove box at the top. There's another one at the bottom. Then you have bottle holders on each side, on the passenger and the driver side doors. Sun visors, which do not have any vanity mirrors. There are no handles on either side of the cabin as well, but you do have it at the back of the cabin. Then there is this reading lamp. There's this microphone to capture your voice when you're talking via the Bluetooth telephony. And of course, at the center of it all, you have this 7-inch touchscreen, which has Android Auto and CarPlay. And that's the key that leads you to the car and also allows you to lock and unlock the vehicle. Now let's have a look at the digital instrument console. Let's turn on the car, put it on battery mode for now. And there you see a fully digital console, but mind you, this doesn't have a tachometer, so that's something you'll miss out on. Now that's your touchscreen display or the infotainment system, which has almost all the things that you would require. You have telephony, which can be accessed using Bluetooth. You have radio, which is FM and AM both. You can play your media using the USB port right here. And then you have navigation and maps. Now let's talk about driving comfort. Now for someone in the driver's seat, this car has adequate headroom and legroom. Now I am a 6'2" tall guy, as some of you may be aware, and I still have enough headroom here. I don't have any impediments while I place my legs on the floor pan. The seating is quite upright, and which would really help in drivers trying to have a good look at the road. Since the driving posture is upright, it also allows you to have easy ingress and outgress. Now let's get into the rear of the cabin. Now as you can see, the rear of the cabin isn't quite the largest. As you can see, it's a compact car, so space will be quite a squeeze. Headroom for me is, for a guy of my height, is quite a lot still. Legroom in terms of my driving position, my driver's height position, isn't quite as good as well. You can see that my legs are squeezed right in here. Under thigh support isn't great as well, but for people having average height, they shouldn't have any problems whatsoever sitting in this seating area. The passenger seat isn't that wide as well, and it can only seat two comfortably, and the third person will be quite a squeeze, especially because the transmission tunnel is running right by in the center, which means that the floor is not really flat. You also have door handles right here for the passengers at the back, and you don't have power window controls for the rear passengers. You only have a manual control for the windows. The headrests right here are fixed headrests, so you can't adjust these, and there's no center headrest for passengers at the back. That's the luggage tray or the parcel tray right here where you can put some of your stuff. So here is the AMT dial, which works seamlessly with the 5-speed automated manual transmission. Now, an automated manual transmission, simply put, is a manual gearbox where gears are shifted by a computer based on how much you accelerate or decelerate. This dial has 3 modes: drive, neutral, and reverse. There is no park mode as such, and you must use this handbrake when you want to engage the parking brake of the car. Now let's quickly get into drive mode and see how easy this car is. Now let's switch on the ignition and take this car for a spin. Now driving this car is really easy. The reason is this transmission, that is the AMT transmission, is quite effective and has quite smooth gear shifts. Now getting this car into drive mode is as easy as putting this AMT dial into drive mode and then release your brakes and then press the accelerator for the car to be on the move. Now the power of this car is provided by a 1-liter 3-cylinder engine. Now the thing with the 3-cylinder engine is the moment you switch it on, it starts with a rattle, and that rattle is apparent while you're driving the car as well. It's really not the smoothest of engines. Having said that, the car delivers a healthy power, and the torque delivered is also healthy. City drive is a breeze as a result of that. Now the ride on the car is quite good. It soaks in bumps and potholes quite easily. Riding over speed breakers as well in city is quite a breeze. This is a softly sprung suspension. Now the steering on this car is a power steering. However, that said, the steering isn't really connected to the road and doesn't feel great while you're driving. That means that handling isn't that great on the car. The engine responds quite decently as well. It isn't very sharp. The engine responds very linearly, and so the power that you get throughout the rev band is quite linear. So it's an easy to drive car in the city. Now the 5-speed AMT gearbox on this Kwid is quite a delight to use. The shifts are quite smooth and you don't really feel a jerk while the gears are being shifted. But then, thanks to the really nicely put out AMT dial, changing gears from drive to neutral to reverse is quite easy. And let me show you how. Taking into reverse is as easy as pressing the brake, switching to reverse, releasing the brake and pressing the accelerator while you're looking at this display which shows you the view of the rear. In terms of noise insulation, I wouldn't say that the Kwid is the best, which means that you can often hear the engine rattle inside your cabin, and that's not really a good feeling. Okay guys, we reviewed the interiors, we drove the car. What did we understand at the end of it all? To help you viewers, let me sum it up for you. Now let's talk about the positives first. The Kwid stands out in the crowd in terms of design and has a lot of road presence. The AMT dial and the AMT transmission is extremely convenient to use in city traffic. Great ground clearance also helps it over bad roads, and the space inside the cabin is another area where it scores really high compared to its competitors. This means you don't really have to feel cramped inside the cabin. Now, let's get to the negatives. Cost cutting is apparent with no internal adjustment for the outside rear view mirrors. Power button switches are only present in the middle and not on the door side. There is only one wiper. The steering lacks feel and could give a lot better feedback. The rear seat bench is also not the most comfortable place to be in. And the absence of any storage space for rear passengers is a downside too. Now that was the Kwid AMT review for you guys. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share and comment. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Automobiles.